We got this Michigan, South Carolina conspiracy. The theory looks even truer. I believe it was broke by Caleb Calhoun, and we discussed it yesterday. So give me, for those that maybe didn't hear the program yesterday, give me a 15-second background in terms of what the Wolverines were doing to try to win a national championship. Speaking of winning a national championship, you can order the 1998 book, Celebrate 98, The Untold Stories of Tennessee's 1998 National Championship, and I'll get it right to you. Makes great Christmas presents as well, so go ahead and plan ahead because this is the time when it gets tough to get books in, so I can get them to you. We've got Fred White autographed books as well, so we want you to order those. So Michigan's trying to win a national championship like Tennessee did in 1998. And in doing so, they're breaking an incredibly dumb rule that you can't go scout other programs. Although one coach did tell me a good reason why you can't scout other programs, and I'll give you that reason. But first, give me the nutshell of what's going on for those that don't know and why now it looks even truer than it did 24 hours ago.
So this started with the way it's developed. As we know, they were sending scouts to games to scout other teams' signs. We thought it was just in the Big Ten, but it came out 2 days ago that Michigan also scouted non-Big Ten teams, potential college football playoff teams, and that included Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, and Tennessee last year. We also know now, we had details that specifically they were scouting the Tennessee-Kentucky game. What I brought up yesterday was, I don't know if they were scouting those teams for whether or not they'll play them in the playoff. I thought maybe they're scouting those teams to give oppo research to their opponents to get them eliminated from the playoff, not because they're scared of playing those teams, but they wanted to make sure they had a clear path if they happen to stumble and lose a game somewhere. And that's where I got to the idea that Tennessee and Clemson both had mysterious losses to South Carolina at the end of last year when South Carolina was horrid before that. Alabama had an upset.
So did LSU.
Yeah, Alabama had an upset loss to LSU when LSU was not good anytime the rest of the year except that game. And Oregon had 2 upset losses to Washington and Oregon State. Georgia, nobody was going to upset them. They were just that darn good. But so I brought up maybe they were just trying to clear the path. And well, today I have more details on that because Football Scoop, pulling off a Washington Post article that they were scouting SEC foes, a source with direct knowledge indicated to Football Scoop that Michigan may have, quote, attempted to assist the opposition of a potential CFP opponent in an effort to disrupt that team's potential path to the playoff, meaning they might have been giving oppo research to other teams. That's what that means. I also found a story from 2016 that when Shane Beamer was an assistant at Georgia, he was fined $25,000 for accepting information on a leaked game plan in 2014 while at Virginia Tech from a former Wake Forest assistant coach. So Shane Beamer is not new to illegally accepting leaked information about another team. He's at South Carolina. South Carolina was mysteriously good at the end of last year by upsetting 2 teams that Michigan scouted that a source now says Michigan was trying to keep from getting into the playoff to begin with.
So these coaches all know each other. Let me be sure and mention that because it is a fact. And it would not surprise me at all if they shared information. All that Caleb just provided gives me even more reason to believe that Conspiracy Caleb is right on this one. And I think that some information was shared. I would be stunned if it wasn't shared. Now, did it directly affect South Carolina? I don't know. My stance was yesterday that no, that was the Jeremy Banks game. He created just an incredible distraction days before the game. However, I think this team's leadership is so good that the defense wasn't going to tank just because they didn't have Jeremy Banks or they had his back. I believe this team cares more about the team than the individual. So I never believed that the defense purposefully tanked, and I still don't believe that. But perhaps that's why they played so poorly, because some of the signals were shared. I think that's a real possibility. Orange Blood brings this up, that If USC got signal info from this and used against us, then Hooker's injury really bleeps me off. Who knows what might have happened? Now, that was a non-contact injury that could have happened regardless, but you certainly never know. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. You never really know. You step on a blade of grass in the 1800s, and suddenly Donald Trump is the president in the 2010s.
Yeah, I mean I believe that theory. I believe the butterfly effect theory. I'm sure you do too. I mean, I think if I went back,
actually.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you plot me back in 1850 and I just snapped my finger, it would affect 1,000 different things, 1,000,000 different things over a period of time. That would just be, it would affect the coin toss in a football game 100 years later. So that's where I'm at. That's the flaw in Back to the Future, by the way, and Back to the Future 2, where Biff goes back in time and bets on all the games because he sees the scores. Well, if you went back in time and did that, the scores wouldn't be the same. That's just how that works. But
well, let me bring up something David said real quick, which makes sense. Hooker wouldn't have been hurt had we not been trying to stay in the game. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Remind me when he was hurt. Is it third quarter?
He was hurt. No, fourth quarter. It was an 18-point game. It was, I believe the score would have been 42-24, I believe. Or maybe it was 49-31.
Okay.
And so I still thought Tennessee had a chance to come back.
I did too. So if you're Tennessee, though, you're blowing people out left and right. South Carolina was absolutely horrendous. They do well against Clemson, which could that have been another team that was scouted?
Oh, no, that was another team that was scouted. That's what I was getting at. Tennessee and Clemson were both scouted, and South Carolina, after being horrible all year, just shockingly eliminates those two teams from the playoffs.
Okay, so Tennessee comes out, and they're able to blow people out, and things are going their way, and Hendon Hooker never gets hurt. I'll butterfly that effect with you right now, and some other people are drinking the Kool-Aid as well. Orange blood. What we did have the Banks incident. What if both are true? That would explain a lot, because one or the other doesn't explain how lopsided and goofy that game was. I mean, that game came out of left field as much as any other game that I have ever covered. I mean, have you ever watched a Tennessee game that was more unpredictable than that one? That was bizarre.
It was so bizarre. We talked about the game the day before on the Friday show. For the record, just so people know, Tennessee was favored by 21 in that game, and South Carolina won by 25. Do you know how rare it is for a spread to change by 46 points? Given all the information Vegas has, that doesn't happen. And I mean, we agree that the worst line in college football. I mean, the biggest upset in history was USC Stanford. Remember that game in 2007? And USC was a 41-point underdog. Or I'm sorry, Stanford was a 41-point underdog, and they won. That's the biggest upset ever. So they covered a 41-point spread. This spread, and that's the biggest upset ever. This spread flipped 46 points. That does not happen in football, guys, in Vegas. Vegas is way too informed for that to happen. They know way too much about the games.